All right, you comfortable? Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and thank you, Elton, for joining Rokt on stage. Today, unlike the weather in London in the summertime, the holidays are getting hotter and hotter every year with record-breaking sales. So according to the NRF, holiday sales have continued to surge post-pandemic from $782 billion in 2020 to $957 billion in 2023. So $1 trillion is within reach for 2024. Last year at Rokt, we saw 37% of holiday transactions happen in the month of October. This year, we're predicting that we're going to see over 40% of holiday transactions happen in October. So what we're kind of starting to see is consumers, and it's no surprise to anyone in the room, are starting to shop for the holidays earlier and earlier every year. So Elton, what kind of consumer trends are you seeing over at ASOS?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think traditionally you probably had one major peak over Christmas, and over the past... hello, it's not working. The headset that is working. Over the past few decades, we've obviously had a kind of retail peak that has built towards Christmas, and over the past 10 years plus, we really had a kind of dual peak. So we had that Black Friday where we've seen a kind of double build. And that's really evolved over the past years, and retailers and customers' behavior has kind of evolved to that.
Amazing. And so if you had to give some advice to the brands that you're working with today in terms of how should they plan for the holidays and where should they kind of focus their efforts to make sure that they can tap into that $1 trillion and make sure that they get their share of voice, what would you say when working with ASOS and how they should be working with you?
If you look at general retail sales across all categories, what you find is you see the majority of sales are happening probably in the last quarter of the year. So not majority, probably like 50% to 50% of total retail sales for particular retailers can actually take place in one quarter. So what that means is there's a massive emphasis on that. In terms of brand behavior, how do you go about capturing that demand? So really, it's in an ideal situation, you'll have long-term planning. If you have the luxury of kind of building your brand over years, brands are often focused on making sure they've got a great awareness through the year in the lead up to any key seasonal events during the year. For different categories, that can differ. The kind of majority of retail will be kind of looking at that last quarter of the year as the kind of primary focus, and they will be building awareness and consideration of their brand and their products in that lead up. So if you have the luxury to have the planning and the budgets to do that, lay the foundations in the year ahead of that last quarter. And then of course it's up to really capturing the demand that you've built for your brand, and also the demand that naturally occurs with a massive ramp up in site traffic, in store visits, that consumers tend to gravitate towards retailers in that last quarter where you've got the Black Friday and of course Christmas. And we can talk a little bit about how that's also extended out. But it's very much about laying the foundations during the year if you can, and then keeping that activity going through so that you're top of mind during that period, and also activating and harvesting that demand with more kind of mid to lower funnel tactics in the actual quarter, where it's largely down to promotional activity. So you kind of got two things working during that period for brands and retailers, where brands and retailers will often negotiate great promotional discounts on particular products for that period. And in addition to that, you've got that supported by kind of low funnel tactics in retail media that are really driving the kind of low funnel exposure of those brands in that when the traffic is peaking.
Nice. And I know, so kind of talking a lot about the advertiser and tactics, But I know we hear a lot about relevancy in the industry right now, and I know that ASOS has done a lot over the past couple of years to be more relevant with the stock that you hold. So can you talk a little bit more about knowing your customer and outside of just kind of the advertising funnel tactics, making sure that you have, what you guys are doing around making sure that there's the relevant products for the customers when they come online to look for, whether it's gifts for themselves for the holidays or gifts for their loved ones?
Yeah, I mean, the fashion industry is slightly different in that you actually have seasonal peaks at different times of the year in addition to the holiday period. So spring, summer is a massive launch for fashion, and also the autumn, winter period just before we get into the holiday promotional cycle. So we would be kind of looking at, fundamentally, like you said, we focused very much on getting our selection and our product really focused on fashion and newness. So coming out of the pandemic, we had a lot of excess stock. We were one of the only kind of online fashion retailers open. Well, should I say, the online fashion retailers were open, the stores weren't. So we enjoyed a kind of real benefit from that, in that customers were turning to us to come and buy fashion and clothing. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't necessarily just the most fashionable goods. We saw a lot of demand, and we adjusted our buying behavior in terms of what we were picking up from brands. So we found ourselves doubling our stock in a year, up to the £1 billion mark, where we had loads of tracksuits and T-shirts and socks and just stuff that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see on ASOS. And that kind of put us in a position where we were carrying a whole lot of excess after the pandemic. So we've really kind of refined that over the past 2 years, back to fashion, back to newness. And in terms of how that affects the kind of seasonal promotional events and consumer, giving the consumer what they want, it's very much about the key seasonal times of year, like I said, spring, summer, autumn, winter, and then of course into the kind of Christmas and holiday period. So it's very much about making sure that we have those fresh trends and fashions for different times of year, whether someone is getting ready for the holiday season mm-hmm. now, summer holidays. Festival season is a kind of big one over this time of year. Summer holidays out in Europe, people want cool stuff to wear. So we plan that up to a year in advance with brands. So some of that is fairly, traditionally slow moving, and combined with new tactics, we've kind of really focused on how do we cater to a much quicker turnover in terms of noticing new trends. And we've actually got the luxury of producing our own fashion as well. So ASOS owns 13 brands of our own, the likes of Collusion and Topshop, Topman, Miss Selfridge, and so on. And we actually produce items of clothing based on what's hot now, and we can design something today and it will be on site in 2 to 3 weeks. So we've got that combination of kind of long-term planning with brands on the bigger fashion houses, the bigger brands, what's coming through in the next season, mm-hmm. and then we're also looking at what's hot today that people want to wear to, Boardmasters in a few weeks' time, and we want to make sure we've got that too. So how that plays out in a marketing and advertising sense is you kind of, the bigger brands are, I suppose, traditionally less agile. They know what's down the line. They know what is going to be hot next year already. So we are planning that well in advance. And our big creative solutions, we work at a kind of 3-month planning cycles. So everything is pretty well organized on the whole. Like I said, that fast-moving, hot trend fashion item that is available in 2 to 3 weeks' time, that's a lot more difficult to kind of plan for. So we tend to be a little bit more tactical when it comes to that.
Yeah, and I'm sure that what's enabled you to be able to do that these days and kind of plan more quickly and turn those trends into things that people can access much quicker is having access to this wealth of retail data to be able to make informed decisions. So can you share some insights on, within AMG, what types of insights do you give your brands so that they can actually make better informed decisions around what might be trending for Glastonbury a couple months ahead of time so that they can go into production, or some of the great collaborations that you've done?
Yeah, so as a retailer, we'll be privy to seeing, all the kind of sales-related data related to a brand and their products. And brands are very interested, as you would not be surprised to know, at how they're doing compared to their competitors. So, there's a lot of talk within brands and retail conversations about what is my share of sales on your platform and how are we doing against our competitors. Are we gaining share? Are we losing share? What's our conversion like? What is our basket size like? What does the demographic of the customer look like? What are their age? What's their age? What's their buying behavior? So there's a combination of lots of different data points that we make available for brands. And, we are starting to look at that from a marketing strategy and tactic perspective as well. So we want to work with our brands to help them plan their marketing strategies and tactics, and that data to influence what they're doing. So, for instance, if you are, you might be a big brand running a massive campaign with ASOS, and all the KPIs and indicators and metrics look positive. Your awareness figures are good. You've had great return on ad spend. Things are looking rosy. And you might be looking at your market share data and seeing that it's dropping slightly. Yeah. So it's very important to look at some of these retail media ad tech metrics in conjunction with the retailer data that can be offered and the insights that can be derived. For instance, in that example, you've got a case that perhaps something else is going on with that particular advertiser's competitors. They might have had a more sustained period of marketing investment over time. They might have raised the awareness and consideration of their brand, and even though there's been a big campaign by this brand over here, they're still somehow losing a bit of share to their competitor. So it's really important just to see that you've got the right level of investment. So in this case, we can work closely with the brand who's lost a little bit of share to understand what can be done there? What do we need to do to make sure that gap is narrowed?
Nice. And what is one of the hottest trends at ASOS right now? I know that every time I go to the office, there's a lot of very fashionable people walking around. So what is one of the hottest summer trends going on right now?
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing is when you go into the office, it's kind of like shows you what is actually hot for the 20-something fashion-loving audience. Because we've got 3,000 employees at Greater London House here in Camden. And, I can always see what presents I need to buy my kids by, what the staff are wearing. So, I mean, this summer's been a massive success for Adidas. Yeah, so the Samba shoe has just been like on fire this year.
Who has a pair of Samba shoes?
Yeah, lots of Sambas being worn at the moment. But I mean, we're seeing like a lot of leopard print and creeping back in. And so, it's really interesting to see what's going on. And also the great thing is, when we work with our brands, we tend to kind of style their brands, for instance, especially the sportswear brands who kind of can really benefit from having a fashion lens put over their product in our visuals. We style their products with what's hot at the moment. So you'll see a lot of ASOS branded garments being styled with Adidas. For instance, you'll see a cool feminine blouse with a real standout pair of Adidas shorts or trainers or something. So we plan to inspire our customers with how to wear sportswear in more of a fashionable way in this case.
Great. And kind of going back into the retail media and what's ahead in the future. So how do you see the landscape of retail media evolving, and what do you think brands need to do to stay ahead of the curve?
I mean, we've seen a huge proliferation of, I suppose, not even just retailers, but lots of different types of companies entering the retail media space. I mean, you've got banks, you've got travel companies. Chase launched a retail media business recently. Expedia has been going for a while. So it's not just retailers and retail categories. It's very diverse. And I think it's, obviously everyone is focused on the first-party customer data that retailers or database owners have to offer brands and advertisers. But I suppose as an advertiser, the dilemma is probably choice at the moment, and similarly for agencies. So there is so much choice out there in terms of where you can spend your ad investment. It's very much about identifying, what is going to resonate with your brand and your product strongly, and actually having a clear view on what is the reason why I'm choosing this particular option, because there's a lot of dilution out there that you can dilute your ad investment if you're not careful. In terms of kind of specifics, I would say there's a number of challenges out in the industry. Standardization of metrics it has been a point of discussion for the last year or two, where retailers and database owners are trying to standardize their metrics to a degree where advertisers and brands can actually easily or more easily compare one retail media platform or option to another, because things like attribution windows have slightly different definitions, and what is a new customer, how long what a new to brand. ROAS is fairly static, but it's also about is it brand halo, or is it specifically to a group of specific SKUs that relate to a campaign. Yeah. So the standardization is important. There's been a lot of discussion, like I said, and bodies like the IAB and ISBA have been instrumental with some of the leading media agencies in actually kind of pulling these metrics together, pulling the big retail media players in the UK, Europe, US, and alignment between these markets. So we are trying to make that easier. It is challenging, but it's definitely something where we're moving in the right direction to at least enable the same language to be spoken across retailers, and really important where if you're in an agency environment where an agency might be buying across a number of different retail options.
Yeah. Well, one last question to end it. We hear a lot about standardization and measurement. What's your prediction on when it will actually happen? I don't think 2024. Do you think 2025?
Yeah, I mean,
26?
It's hard to say. I think that's probably it's an evolution. The reality is there are a few kind of early mover behemoths who've had a lot of time to get this right. You've got the Amazons and the Tescos and the big, largely grocers. Walmart's kind of pretty new to the game, but they are making huge progress really fast. So globally, there's a lot of focus on standardization and offering, linking the data up to the ad products where you can really control audience targeting and then the measurement thereof in terms of the measurement of campaigns. When will it be fixed? Not sure. I think the big players much sooner than the rest of us. We are all kind of on this journey of evolving our proposition to be as good as possible. We understand that you need to put the right message in front of consumers, the right consumers at the right time in their purchase journey. Yep. And of course, we need to make sure that we're measuring that and offering up, I suppose, advice and recommendations to brands in how to optimize campaigns going forward. And of course, justify the investment to their own CFOs. That's kind of really what the whole thing is. We need to prove that there is return on investment, it's good investment, and the quicker we can do that, the more that investment will flow. So there is a huge emphasis on retailers getting it right. We're all kind of racing ahead to try and do it. When will it happen? It's happening, but it might not be perfect.
Amazing. Well, thank you again for joining me on stage. And I believe you have another session this afternoon at 2:15?
Yeah, I'll be talking about the kind of storytelling component that we do with our fashion-loving 20-somethings at ASOS.
Amazing.
Thanks very much.
Thank you all. God bless.